a struggling young nurse married a dying widower, unaware he was a billionaire hospital owner. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. The night was cold, and a light drizzle fell on the streets as Anna Monroe, a young nurse, hurried through the hospital's back entrance. Her mind raced with exhaustion, worry, and a sense of being overwhelmed. She had been working double shifts for weeks, and tonight was no different. Little did she know, tonight would change everything. As she walked toward the ICU, she couldn't help but think of the mounting pressure at home. Her mother's medical bills were piling up, and her younger brother's college tuition was just around the corner. The weight of it all felt suffocating. But tonight, she was assigned to a very special patient, a man named Grant Carter, the CEO of Carter Enterprises. Just hearing his name made her pause. She had heard the whispers around the hospital about his wealth and power. The top-tier private suite had been reserved for him, and now Anna had been assigned to take care of him. As she entered his room, the silence was overwhelming. The heart monitor beeped steadily, but everything else in the room seemed frozen in time. The man lying before her was a stranger, pale, fragile, hooked up to tubes and machines. But even in his current state, there was something about him that exuded power. She adjusted his foredrip, her fingers brushing his warm skin, feeling an unexpected connection. I can do this, she thought, trying to convince herself. Just another patient. But there was something deeper at play here, and she couldn't shake it. Day after day, Anna followed her routine, changing his sheets, bathing him, checking his vitals. But she also talked to him. She told him about her day, about her struggles, about her dreams. She wasn't sure if he could hear her, but it felt like he was. Over time, her care became a form of emotional refuge for herself. Then, one day, as she was adjusting his pillow, something changed. She felt a slight twitch in his hand. Anna froze, her heart skipped a beat. Could it be? Was he finally waking up? Her mind raced as she checked his vitals again. Everything seemed stable, but the movement was enough to make her wonder. She called Dr. Harris immediately, and the medical team rushed in to evaluate him. Anna stood back, watching as they checked for any signs of progress. She hadn't realized just how much she had become invested in this man's recovery. Over the following days, Grant's condition slowly improved. He was still unconscious, but his body was responding to the care he was receiving. What Anna didn't know was that Grant Carter wasn't just another patient. He wasn't just some rich CEO. He was one of the wealthiest men in the country, the owner of Carter Enterprises, which included a vast network of hospitals. And soon, Anna would find out that this man, whom she had been caring for with such dedication, was about to change her life in ways she could never have imagined. Days passed, and Anna found herself more deeply immersed in her work than ever before. Every morning, she would arrive at the hospital early, her thoughts constantly returning to the man in room 704, Grant Carter. She had become a routine for him, a comforting presence in his sterile, silent world. Each day, she would change his sheets, check his vitals, and talk to him, telling him stories about her life, even though she wasn't sure if he could hear her. She spoke of her struggles, her dreams of one day becoming a nurse practitioner, and how she wanted to give her family a better life. It felt good to share these things with him, even though she was talking to a man who hadn't moved or responded in weeks. Yet, deep down, Anna couldn't help but feel as though something more was slowly unfolding, something beyond the sterile walls of the hospital. Grant's small, subtle improvements didn't go unnoticed. A slight twitch of his fingers one morning, a barely perceptible change in his heartbeat another. It was enough to give Anna hope. She knew he was getting stronger, though slowly. What Anna didn't know was that as much as she had been caring for Grant, he had been slowly waking up to her kindness, her unwavering dedication. As days went by, he would occasionally open his eyes for a few seconds, only to close them again, but the doctors remained optimistic. They hadn't expected this kind of progress from someone in his condition. It was all happening so quietly, like a delicate promise being made, a bond forming between them that neither of them fully understood yet. The hospital staff noticed, too. Dr. Harris, the head neurologist, was impressed with Grant's recovery, but he was also cautious. "We have to be careful," he warned Anna one morning as they stood by Grant's bed, watching the steady beeping of his heart monitor. "Sometimes the body can show signs of improvement, but we need to be sure it's not temporary." Anna nodded, but there was a part of her that refused to let go of the hope that Grant would eventually wake up fully, that he would finally open his eyes and speak to her. She didn't know why, but she felt a deep connection to him. It was as though her presence in his life was part of a much bigger plan. Then, one evening, it happened. Grant opened his eyes, wide, and for the first time in weeks, his gaze locked onto Anna's. She froze, her breath caught in her throat. His eyes were a striking shade of blue, clear and full of confusion. "Anna?" he whispered, his voice rough from disuse. The sound of his voice sent a shock through her, and she quickly stepped closer to his bed, her heart racing. "Grant, can you hear me?" she asked, her voice trembling. He nodded weakly, his gaze softening as he looked at her. "I can't hear you," he whispered again, barely audible. Anna could hardly believe what she was hearing. She had been waiting for this moment for so long, and now it was finally happening. But as she looked at him, a strange mix of emotions flooded through her. Relief, joy, and an overwhelming sense of vulnerability. "You're awake," she said softly, a tear slipping down her cheek. Grant's hand shifted slightly, and he reached out toward her. She immediately took his hand, feeling the warmth of his touch, the strength slowly returning to him. For a moment, they simply held each other's gaze, both of them unsure of what to say next. It was a moment of pure connection, one that transcended the boundaries of the hospital room. But then, Grant's expression changed. A flash of confusion crossed his face. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice still weak, but filled with a sense of unfamiliarity. Anna hesitated. The question was simple, but it carried so much weight. How could she explain the bond that had formed between them in his coma? How could she tell him that she had cared for him, spoken to him every day, even when he couldn't respond? "I'm Anna," she said softly, squeezing his hand. "I'm your nurse. I've been caring for you these past few weeks." Grant's eyes narrowed slightly, as if trying to process the information. "Nurse," he repeated slowly. "I don't remember. How long have I been here?" Anna smiled gently, her heart swelling with the relief that he was finally awake. "You've been in a coma for over a month," she said softly. "You were in a car accident. But you're getting better now. You're waking up." Grant looked away for a moment, his brow furrowing. It was clear that he was trying to make sense of everything. Anna couldn't blame him. After all, he had no memory of the time he had spent in the hospital, and he didn't know who she was or how she had become a part of his recovery. But even though the questions were still lingering in the air, one thing was certain. He was awake, and she had been there for him every step of the way. And somehow, that was enough for now. Over the next few days, Grant's recovery progressed steadily, though not without its challenges. Anna remained by his side, offering her unwavering support, carefully monitoring his condition, and providing comfort whenever he needed it. Despite the slow but steady improvements, there was still a sense of uncertainty hanging in the air. Grant's memories were fragmented, and he struggled to piece together the events that had led him to this hospital bed. At times, he would ask Anna questions about his life, but she could only answer with the limited information she had, which was mostly about his medical condition and recovery. His family hadn't visited, and his business dealings remained a mystery to Anna, though she could sense there was more to him than just the quiet man lying in the bed. One evening, as Anna sat beside him, flipping through his medical chart, Grant turned to her. "Anna," he said, his voice still raspy but more confident than before. "I don't remember much about my life, but I know I've been fortunate. My company, my wealth, it was all built from nothing. But right now, I feel lost." His words hung in the air, and Anna's heart went out to him. She had witnessed his vulnerability in these moments of clarity, and it made her wonder what kind of man he truly was beyond the walls of this hospital. The following morning, Anna walked into Grant's room to find him sitting up in bed, looking out the window with a distant expression. The change in him was palpable. There was a weariness in his eyes that she hadn't seen before, and for the first time, he seemed like a man who wasn't just recovering physically, but mentally and emotionally as well. "I've been thinking a lot about my life," Grant said as she entered, his voice low and introspective. "I've built an empire, but at what cost?" Anna could hear the weight of his words, and she slowly sat down in the chair beside him. "What do you mean?" she asked softly. He turned to her, his gaze intense. "I've spent so much of my life focused on my business, on making money, on building something that would last, but I've neglected the people who matter. I haven't been the kind of person I want to be." Anna was taken aback by his honesty, by the raw emotion that seemed to pour from him. For the first time, she saw the man behind the CEO title, the man who was still grappling with his past mistakes and regrets. "You've been through a lot," she said gently, placing a hand on his. "And now you're here. You're alive, and you have a chance to make things right." Grant's eyes softened, and for a moment, he allowed himself to lean into her comfort. "I don't know how to do that," he admitted. "I don't know where to start." Anna smiled softly, her voice steady and reassuring. "One step at a time," she said. "It starts with acknowledging where you've been, and then you move forward." For the first time in a long while, Grant felt a sense of clarity. Anna's words resonated with him, and he realized that he didn't have to figure everything out all at once. He could start by healing, by allowing himself to be vulnerable and open to the possibilities ahead. As the days passed, their connection deepened. Grant slowly began to open up about his past, about his struggles with his family and his business. Anna listened patiently, offering him encouragement and understanding, never once judging him for his mistakes. One afternoon, as Anna was preparing to leave for her shift, Grant reached out and stopped her. "Anna, wait," he said, his voice laced with urgency. She turned back to face him, her brow furrowed in concern. "What is it?" "I need to tell you something," Grant said, his expression serious. "I've been thinking a lot about what you've said, and I've realized something. I'm not just grateful for the care you've given me, though that means more than you know. I'm grateful for you." Anna's heart skipped a beat. "Grateful for me?" she repeated, a soft smile forming on her lips. "Yes," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You've been here for me when no one else was. You've shown me a kindness I never expected, and it's changed the way I see things. It's changed me." His words left Anna speechless, and for a moment, she simply stood there, her heart racing in her chest. She hadn't expected this, hadn't realized just how much her presence had affected him. It was clear now that there was more than just a patient-nurse relationship between them. Something deeper was growing, something neither of them fully understood yet. "Grant," she whispered, but before she could finish, he gently took her hand in his. "I don't have all the answers," he said quietly, "but I know one thing. I want to know more about you. I want to get to know the person who's been here for me, who's cared for me when I needed it the most. I want to make things right, for both of us." The sincerity in his words made Anna's heart swell. It was a moment she would never forget, a moment when everything seemed to shift, and she realized that maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something truly remarkable. As the days passed, Anna and Grant grew closer, their connection evolving from one of nurse and patient to something much deeper. Anna's presence seemed to bring comfort and stability to Grant, and though his physical recovery was progressing, it was clear that the emotional healing was just beginning. Grant continued to reflect on his life, the mistakes he had made, and the things he had neglected, but he was determined to make changes. Anna could see the shift in him. He was no longer just the powerful CEO who had built an empire from scratch. He was a man trying to find his way back to the life he had lost. One afternoon, as Anna was checking on Grant's progress, he turned to her with a serious expression. "Anna," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "I've been thinking a lot about everything you've said. I realize now that I've spent my whole life chasing success, but I've never truly stopped to appreciate the people around me, the ones who matter the most." Anna listened quietly, her heart swelling with compassion. She had seen the transformation in him over the past few weeks, and it wasn't just physical. There was something else, something that had begun to awaken in Grant, a realization that he wanted more than just his company and his wealth. "I've been so focused on building an empire," he continued, "that I lost sight of the things that truly make life worth living." Anna placed a hand on his, offering a small, reassuring smile. "It's never too late to change," she said softly. "You have the power to make things right, to rebuild the relationships you've lost." Grant's gaze softened as he took in her words. "I don't even know where to begin," he admitted. "Everything feels so complicated." Anna nodded understandingly. "Start with the people who matter to you," she suggested. "Reach out, make amends, and take things one step at a time. You don't have to have all the answers right now. The sincerity in her voice seemed to resonate with Grant. He realized that she wasn't just telling him what he wanted to hear. She was speaking from the heart, offering him the wisdom he so desperately needed. Over the next few weeks, Grant began to take small steps toward healing. He reached out to old friends and family members, trying to repair the relationships that had been broken over the years. He also started spending more time reflecting on his company, realizing that he wanted to build something more meaningful, something that would make a real difference in people's lives. As Anna watched him take these steps, she couldn't help but feel proud of the man he was becoming. She had seen him at his lowest, and now she was witnessing his transformation into someone who wanted to make a positive impact on the world. One evening, as Anna was preparing to leave for the day, Grant called out to her. "Anna, wait," he said, his voice more confident than it had ever been. She turned to face him, her heart skipping a beat. "What is it?" she asked, her tone curious. Grant looked at her with a serious expression, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I've been thinking about what you said, about how I need to take things one step at a time. And I've come to a realization." He paused for a moment, as if gathering his thoughts. "I want you to know that I'm not just grateful for the care you've given me. I'm grateful for you. You've been here for me when no one else was. You've shown me what real kindness is, and it's changed the way I see the world." Anna was speechless, her heart fluttering in her chest. She had never expected to hear these words from him, especially not after everything they had been through. "Grant," she said softly, her voice barely a whisper, "you don't have to thank me. I've just been doing my job." Grant shook his head, his gaze never leaving hers. "No, Anna," he said firmly. "You've done so much more than that. You've made me realize that there's more to life than business, more to life than success. You've made me see that I need to start living for the things that matter: love, family, and the people who make my life whole." His words left Anna speechless, but in that moment, she knew something had changed, something deep and profound. It was clear that they had both been healing, but now, the connection between them had evolved into something stronger, something that went beyond just nurse and patient. Over the next few days, Anna and Grant spent more time together, their conversations deepening as they shared their thoughts, fears, and dreams. Grant talked about his plans for the future, how he wanted to rebuild his company with a focus on giving back to the community. Anna, in turn, shared her own dreams of becoming a nurse practitioner and making a difference in the lives of others. They both realized that they had more in common than they had ever expected. They were two people who had faced challenges, who had been through hardships, but who had found a way to support each other and grow stronger together. And just when Anna thought things couldn't get any more complicated, Grant surprised her. One evening, as they sat together on the balcony of his hospital room, overlooking the city lights, Grant turned to her and said, "Anna, I want you to know that when I leave this hospital, I'm not leaving behind the person who helped me get here. I want you in my life, and I want to build something with you." The sincerity in his voice left Anna speechless, and for a moment, she didn't know what to say. But deep down, she knew one thing for certain: her life, and his, would never be the same again. As the days turned into weeks, Anna and Grant found themselves growing even closer, their connection deepening in ways neither of them had expected. Anna had always been focused on her career, her family, and the goal of helping others, but her time with Grant had changed her in profound ways. She no longer saw her life as just about surviving from one day to the next. She saw it as a journey to create something meaningful, something worth fighting for. Grant, too, had experienced a transformation. The man who had once been consumed by his wealth and business empire was now someone who sought more from life, someone who wanted to make a difference, not just in the corporate world, but in the lives of those around him. His past mistakes had not been erased, but they had given him the drive to rebuild his life, to start again, and to cherish the things that truly mattered. One evening, as Anna was sitting by his bedside, helping him with his therapy exercises, Grant looked at her with a determined expression. "Anna," he began, his voice steady, "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about how I need to take things one step at a time. I've realized something important." Anna paused in her work, meeting his gaze. "What is it?" she asked, her voice soft but full of curiosity. Grant smiled, a genuine warmth in his eyes. "I've spent so much of my life building things for myself: money, power, success, but none of it has truly fulfilled me. What I've been missing all this time is the connection with the people who matter, with the ones who help us grow, and I've been blind to that for far too long." He took a deep breath before continuing, his voice filled with sincerity. "I know I still have a long way to go, but I want to start over. I want to build something real, something that's not just about business, but about community, about helping others, about being the kind of man who values love and human connection over everything else." Anna felt her heart swell with emotion as she listened to him. She had seen him at his lowest, in his moments of weakness, but now she saw the man who was ready to embrace his true self, to live a life that was no longer dictated by the pursuit of success alone. "You're already on the right path," she said softly, her eyes filled with understanding. "It's about taking those first steps, being honest with yourself and others, and allowing yourself to feel vulnerable. You don't have to have it all figured out. Just take it one day at a time." Grant nodded, absorbing her words. It was clear that he had already taken the most important step. He had admitted to himself that he needed change, that he wanted something more than just wealth and power. As the days passed, Anna and Grant spent more time together, talking about their hopes, their dreams, and their vision for the future. Grant began to get involved with his company again, but this time with a renewed sense of purpose. He met with his team to discuss new initiatives, focusing on charitable efforts and ways to give back to the community. He wanted to use his resources to make a real difference, to help those who had struggled like he had in the past. Anna, too, began to think about her own future, her career aspirations, and how she could continue to make a difference in the world. She was still committed to becoming a nurse practitioner, but now she was driven by something deeper, an understanding that her work was about healing not just the body, but the heart as well. One night, as they sat together in the garden outside the hospital, watching the stars twinkle above, Grant turned to Anna, his expression thoughtful. "Anna, I've been thinking a lot about what you said," he began, his voice a little shaky but full of conviction. "You've shown me a side of life I never thought possible. You've given me hope, not just for my future, but for the future of everyone around me. And I want to thank you for that. You've changed my life." Anna felt her heart skip a beat as she heard his words. She had always believed in the power of kindness, but she had never imagined that it could have such a profound impact. "Grant," she said softly, her voice filled with warmth, "I'm just doing what I know is right. You've always had the power to change, you just needed to see it. I'm just glad I could be a part of that." Grant reached for her hand, his fingers brushing against hers as he looked into her eyes. "I want to build a future with you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I want to make up for the time I've lost, for all the things I missed. And I want you by my side, every step of the way." Anna's heart melted as she looked at him, her emotions overwhelming her. She had never imagined that this journey, this incredible journey they had shared, would lead them here, to this moment of understanding, of connection. "I want that too," she whispered, her eyes filled with tears of happiness. "I want to be with you, Grant. I want to help you build something beautiful, something meaningful." In that moment, everything else faded away, the worries, the doubts, the uncertainties. All that mattered was the love and the promise they had found in each other, and the future they would build together. The days continued to pass, and Anna and Grant's bond only grew stronger. As Grant's recovery progressed, so did the shift in his mindset, one that had begun long before he'd awoken from his coma. He was no longer the man who had built his empire on ambition and solitude. He was now someone who saw the world differently, someone who believed in using his success to give back, to create real change. Anna's role in his transformation had not only been about nursing him back to health, but about awakening his soul to the possibilities that life still had to offer. As he began to regain more strength, Grant returned to the boardroom, but this time, it wasn't for the usual meetings and profit discussions. He was now focused on revamping his company's priorities, bringing in a new wave of charitable initiatives and community-focused projects. He no longer cared about the accolades or the power. What mattered was how he could use his position to help others. Anna was right by his side through it all, her support unwavering as they navigated this new chapter together. She had been there during the darkest days of his recovery, and now she was witnessing the rebirth of a man who was finally aligning his heart with his actions. But their journey wasn't without its challenges. As Grant spent more time in the office, the reality of his responsibilities began to weigh on him. There were still conflicts with his family members and old rivalries within his company that threatened to derail his progress. There were moments when he felt like giving up, when the burden of all the changes he wanted to make felt too heavy to carry. But each time those doubts crept in, Anna was there, reminding him of the strength he had inside and the love they shared. One evening, as they sat in his office, going over the details of his latest project, Grant leaned back in his chair, his eyes distant. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm making the right choices," he admitted, his voice low. "I've spent so many years building something that I thought would make me happy, but now I'm not sure. I feel like I'm constantly battling the past." Anna set down the papers she had been reviewing and walked over to his side, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You're not alone in this," she said softly. "You've already taken the hardest step, admitting that you want something different, something better. It's okay to feel uncertain. The important thing is that you keep moving forward, one step at a time." Grant looked up at her, the weight of his worries still heavy on his shoulders, but he could see the sincerity in her eyes. "I don't know what I would have done without you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Anna smiled gently, squeezing his shoulder. "You would have figured it out, Grant," she said, "but I'm glad I could be here with you." As the days turned into weeks, Grant continued to make progress, both in his personal life and in his business. He spent more time with his family, making amends for the years of neglect, and he dedicated himself to causes that mattered to him. He even started a foundation dedicated to helping underprivileged communities, something he had always dreamed of doing but had never made time for. But despite all the good things that were happening, there was still one thing that weighed on his heart: Anna. He had known for a long time that she had become more than just his nurse, more than just someone who helped him get back on his feet. She had become the woman he wanted to spend the rest of his life with. Yet, he had not found the right moment to tell her. One evening, as they walked through the garden of his family estate, the moonlight casting a soft glow on the flowers around them, Grant stopped and turned to Anna. "There's something I need to say," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. Anna looked up at him, her heart racing. "What is it?" she asked, sensing the seriousness in his tone. Grant took a deep breath, his hand reaching for hers. "Anna, I've spent so many years lost in my own world, chasing success and power, but it wasn't until I met you that I realized what truly matters. You've shown me the meaning of love, the importance of connection, and the power of vulnerability. I don't want to live my life without you." He paused, his eyes locking onto hers. "Will you marry me, Anna?" For a moment, Anna was speechless, her breath caught in her throat. This wasn't just a proposal. It was the culmination of everything they had been through together, the culmination of their love, their growth, and their shared journey. "Yes," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Yes, Grant, I will marry you." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Grant felt a sense of peace wash over him. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment when everything that had once seemed so uncertain finally fell into place. Together, they had found something far more meaningful than success or wealth. They had found each other. And that was all that mattered. The days following Grant's proposal were filled with excitement, but also a sense of calm that Anna had never experienced before. They were no longer just two people trying to navigate through the turbulence of life. They were now partners, ready to face the future together. Anna had always believed in the power of love, but this felt different. This was not just about their bond. It was about the life they would build together, a life centered on meaning, purpose, and giving back to the world. As they began planning their wedding, they also worked together on Grant's new vision for the future. The foundation he had started for underprivileged communities was growing, and he was more determined than ever to make a real difference. Anna was by his side every step of the way, not only helping him with the foundation, but also encouraging him to stay true to his values. "This is what I want to do for the rest of my life," Grant said one afternoon, as they sat together at his desk, reviewing plans for the foundation. "I want to use everything I've built to help people who need it the most. I don't want to just be a billionaire. I want to be someone who makes a difference." Anna smiled, her heart swelling with pride as she looked at him. She had watched him evolve from the man who had once been consumed by his wealth to someone who now cared more about others than himself. "You're already making a difference," she said softly. Everything you've done up to this point has led you here, to this moment, and I know you're going to change so many lives." As the wedding day approached, both of them took time to reflect on how far they had come. Grant had come from a place of deep loneliness and regret, but now he was surrounded by love and hope. He had realized that the wealth and success he had once pursued with such passion were only part of the equation. What truly mattered was the impact he could have on others, the lives he could touch, and the love he could give. And Anna, who had always cared for others, had found a love so deep and fulfilling that it surpassed everything she had ever imagined. Their relationship had not only been a journey of healing for Grant, but it had been a journey of self-discovery for both of them. On the day of the wedding, as Anna stood in front of the mirror, putting the final touches on her dress, she felt a wave of emotions wash over her. She had dreamed of this moment for so long, but now it felt so much more real, so much more meaningful. She wasn't just marrying a man with wealth and power. She was marrying someone who had shown her the true meaning of love, someone who had shown her that no matter where you start, it's never too late to change, to grow, and to build a life full of purpose. When the ceremony began, and she walked down the aisle toward Grant, everything seemed to fade away. The lavish decorations, the guests, the grand setting, it all seemed irrelevant in that moment. What mattered was the man standing at the altar, the man who had changed her life in ways she could never have predicted. As she reached him, their eyes met, and she saw the love, the gratitude, and the hope in his gaze. In that moment, nothing else mattered but the promise they were making to each other. They exchanged vows, their words simple but powerful, as they promised to support each other, to love each other, and to build a future together. As they kissed, sealing their vows, the crowd erupted into applause, but for Anna and Grant, the world had fallen away. The only thing that mattered was their love for each other and the life they would create together. The wedding marked the beginning of a new chapter, but it wasn't the end of their journey. It was just the beginning of a life filled with purpose, love, and the kind of happiness they had always dreamed of. They would face challenges, yes, but they knew they would face them together, as partners, with love and hope guiding them every step of the way. Anna smiled as she looked at Grant, knowing that their love had already proven that anything was possible. As they walked hand in hand toward their future, they knew that no matter what life threw their way, they had each other, and that was all they needed. As the months passed, Anna and Grant settled into their new life together. The wedding had been just the beginning of their journey, and every day seemed to bring new opportunities for them to grow, not only as individuals, but also as a couple. They had faced many challenges, from Grant's physical recovery to the personal struggles he had once buried deep inside. But now, with Anna by his side, he felt more grounded and connected than ever before. Together, they had learned that true happiness wasn't found in wealth or status. It was found in love, in making a difference, and in the relationships they nurtured along the way. Grant continued to pour his heart into the foundation he had started, dedicating more time to the causes he truly cared about. He was no longer just a CEO. He was a man on a mission to bring change to the world, to use his resources to help those who had been overlooked. Anna supported him in every way she could, helping him with the foundation's day-to-day operations and offering advice when he needed it. She had found her own purpose, too. With Grant's encouragement, she had returned to school, working toward her dream of becoming a nurse practitioner. She had always known she wanted to help people, but now, her work was not only about caring for the sick, it was about being a source of strength and hope for others, just as she had been for Grant. As their professional lives flourished, their personal life did as well. They spent weekends together, traveling to new places, trying new things, and simply enjoying each other's company. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, and both of them realized that they had found something truly rare, something worth fighting for. But despite all the progress they had made, there were still moments of doubt and fear. Grant's past, the guilt he carried, the relationships he had neglected, would sometimes surface, reminding him of the man he had once been. There were days when he wondered if he was doing enough, if he was truly making a difference. And Anna, though deeply in love with him, sometimes found herself questioning whether she was doing enough to balance her career and their relationship. But these moments of doubt were brief. They talked through their fears, supported each other through the tough times, and never stopped believing in their love. One night, As they sat on the balcony of their home, looking out at the city below, Grant turned to Anna, a contemplative look on his face. "Do you ever feel like we've come so far, but there's still so much left to do?" he asked, his voice tinged with uncertainty. Anna looked at him, her heart swelling with affection. "Every day," she replied softly. "But that's the beauty of it. We don't have to have all the answers right now. We're doing this together, and that's enough." Grant smiled, his expression softening. He knew she was right. They had come so far, but there was still so much they could do, so much they could give. Together, they were a force for good, and nothing in the world could change that. Over time, Grant's company had transformed. It was no longer just a business. It was a beacon of hope, a platform for change, and a reflection of the man he had become. His focus had shifted from profit to purpose, and he had built a team of like-minded individuals who shared his vision. Anna had become a cornerstone of that vision, not just as his wife, but as a partner in every sense of the word. One evening, as they attended a gala to celebrate the success of the foundation, Grant stood by Anna's side, watching the crowd of people who had gathered to support their cause. He had never imagined that his life would lead him here, that he would be surrounded by people who believed in the same things he did, who wanted to change the world just as much as he did. He looked over at Anna, his heart full of gratitude. "I never could have done this without you," he said quietly. Anna smiled, her hand resting gently on his. "You did it, Grant. We did it. Together." As the night drew to a close, and they stood together on the rooftop overlooking the city, Grant realized something profound. This was the life he had always dreamed of, not one filled with riches and accolades, but one filled with love, purpose, and the fulfillment of knowing he had made a real difference. Anna had given him that gift, and in return, he had given her his heart, his commitment, and his promise to always stand by her side. The future was bright, full of possibilities and endless opportunities, and together, they would continue to write their story, one of love, healing, and a future that was bound by the strength of their connection. As time continued to pass, Anna and Grant's love only grew stronger, rooted in the shared experiences, the highs, the lows, and the profound bond they had built together. Their lives had changed so much since that first meeting in the hospital room. What started as a journey of healing and recovery had transformed into something far more beautiful, a life built on mutual respect, compassion, and the shared mission of making the world a better place. Grant's company had flourished beyond his wildest dreams. His leadership had shifted from focusing on profits to focusing on purpose, and as he built a network of companies dedicated to charity and sustainability, he knew he was living the life he had always been meant to lead. But it wasn't just about business success. It was about the way he had found fulfillment through the people around him, especially Anna. She had always been his anchor, guiding him when he lost his way, encouraging him when he doubted himself, and loving him when he felt undeserving. Together, they had made each other better. Grant had learned that true wealth wasn't measured in the money he had made or the power he wielded. It was measured in the relationships he nurtured and the lives he touched. His success no longer felt hollow, because it was filled with purpose. Anna, too, had found the strength to follow her dreams. Her work as a nurse practitioner had given her a sense of purpose and pride that she had never known before. The days were long, and the work was difficult, but she felt more alive than she ever had, knowing that every patient she helped, every life she touched, was part of the bigger picture. Together, they were building a life that was about more than just success. It was about making a difference in the world and leaving a legacy that would last. Their story had always been one of transformation. From the moment Anna had cared for Grant when he was at his lowest, they had both been on a journey of growth. They had learned from each other, supported each other, and loved each other through it all. As they looked back on everything they had been through, they realized just how much they had overcome, how much they had gained, not in material wealth, but in the depth of their connection. They had both been changed by their love for one another, and by the way they had chosen to live their lives. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Grant and Anna found themselves on the porch of their home, watching the sunset. The golden light bathed the landscape in a soft glow, and for a moment, everything felt perfect. They sat in comfortable silence, hand in hand, enjoying the peace they had fought so hard to create. "You know," Grant said softly, breaking the silence, I never imagined that my life would turn out this way. I used to think success was about building an empire, but now I know it's about building a family, about being surrounded by the people who matter most." Anna smiled, squeezing his hand. "You've done both," she said quietly. "You've built something incredible, and now you're using it to make the world a better place. I couldn't be prouder of you." Grant looked at her, his eyes filled with gratitude and love. "And I couldn't have done it without you," he said. "You're the reason I found my way. You've shown me that love, kindness, and making a difference are what truly matter." They sat together as the stars began to appear in the sky, and for the first time in a long while, both Anna and Grant felt a deep sense of peace. They had found each other at a time when neither of them thought they could be saved, but together, they had healed, and they had created a life that was richer than anything they could have imagined. Their love was a testament to the power of transformation, to the belief that it was never too late to change, and that with the right person by your side, anything was possible. As they looked out at the world before them, they knew that the journey they had started together was far from over. There was still so much to be done, so many lives to touch, and so many dreams to fulfill. But no matter what challenges lay ahead, they knew that as long as they had each other, they could face anything. And with that thought, they turned their gaze toward the horizon, ready to embrace whatever the future held, together.